Greetings everyone, hope you are doing well. In today's video we're going to be doing a tutorial on the pre-closing occupancy addendum for the buyer. This particular addendum is used when the buyer is going to be taking possession or occupying the premises of the property before the actual closing takes place. So we'll discuss how to fill out this addendum. It's only one page, half a page really. It's pretty short, and we'll walk through this very quickly. Before we begin, as always, take a few seconds to explain our company is Nizz Realty Inc. At the time of making this video, we're licensed in the state of Florida, hopefully other states in the future. We pay all of our agents 100% of their real estate commission, so that means you receive 100% of your commission, the full amount. Further information about our brokerage can be seen in the description below, or you can feel free to visit our website, or feel free to call us for a free confidential consultation. Enough about our company. If you want more information about it, like I said, it's in the description below. For now, let's get into the video because that's probably why you're here watching this. So this addendum, as I said in the beginning of the video, it's used for when the buyer is going to be going to occupy the property before the actual closing. I don't really recommend, especially if you're representing the seller, that you have buyers occupy the property before the closing, so I rarely use this addendum. However, that's not always the case. This addendum does exist. It can be used and applied to contracts, and in certain situations it can be useful depending on the unique situation or what type of contract's going on. So it does have its uses. I normally don't use it, but depending on your transaction, you may want to. So as always, in the top, it's pretty simple. Put in the seller's name. We'll just use some placeholders for right now. Buyer's name and the property. Property address. Very simple. Now you gotta have the buyer's initial here. All of the buyers and all of the sellers will initial. And then let's talk about this quick paragraph that is the probably the only part you have to really fill out that could be a little confusing. So, this contract is contingent upon buyer and seller within blank days after effective date delivering to each other a mutually agreeable written lease, pre-closing occupancy agreement, or other similar agreement. So, the best way I'd recommend that you do this is you first fill out the days. Let's say you're closing, you want to have, usually if left blank, I usually don't like to leave things blank, so I'll just put a number there for a placeholder. 10 days is a good amount of days, so 10 days prior to the closing, you should have this document executed and delivered to all parties. 15 days is probably better. So this is really personal preference. It could be anything you put there, 3 days, 5 days, 20 days. That's at your discretion. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to say 15. Now, the easiest way to do this is to have the written lease, and we have our videos of that, of the leases that you're allowed to prepare as a licensee in the state of Florida. The the actual lease agreement for a single family home or for a condominium, co-op, duplex. So I suggest doing that. If the buyer is going to be taking possession of the property before the closing, I would write up a lease, and you fill in the blanks as you're allowed to with the contract you're supposed to use as a licensee. We have a video about that. So the lease is the best thing. Of course, you could have an attorney draft something if your clients are working with attorneys, or some type of pre-closing occupancy agreement or other similar agreements. If you're doing any of those type of things, as a real estate licensee, you really shouldn't be filling those out. That's for the parties to fill out themselves, or to have an attorney draft up. So that's why I always recommend, as a real estate licensee, a realtor, an agent, a broker, a real estate broker should be filling out that lease that I have a video for, that only real estate licensees are supposed to fill in the blanks for. The non-lawyer disclosure. So that's my recommendation. Enough babbling about that. The easiest way to understand this, just to make it simple, is do a written lease. Then fill it out, what type of rent they're paying, how long is it, and so forth. So just fill out the written lease if you want to take care of it as the real estate licensee. Otherwise, I suggest having the clients take care of it personally between themselves or get an attorney involved. Most of the time your clients hired you as a realtor to take care of these things, so the easiest way is to prepare the written lease and take care of it there. The next part is, who's going to be preparing the lease and so forth. Could be at the seller's expense, buyer's expense, or split equally. I usually always check mark the split equally by the buyer and seller for buyer to take possession of the property on, and this is where you put a date. So let's say the closing's on the let's say it's on the 31st. You could put on here a date of 15 days or earlier. So usually want just put a date there and make sure it's matches up with these dates prior to the closing. So if the closing's on the 16th of June, probably want to have this completed and so forth, and they could take possession on whatever date, but have the documents completed before the 16th, obviously, and maybe they'll take possession on the 14th of June, whenever, that's something to be agreed upon between the parties, and you just put the date there when they're going to be occupying the premises. And you should have that written lease drafted for when they begin that and whatever the rent payments are. And as a real estate licensee, you could charge a fee, commission, and so forth for preparing the lease because it's additional documentation. You could not charge it. Maybe the commission that you're receiving for the sales contract that you're doing is enough. That's for you to write into your contract to lease and another document that's agreed upon between the parties. That's why usually you write here split equally between, but if not, the buyer is going to pay it in full or the seller. You just choose which one is applicable. I usually always click the split, but I've seen the buyer or the seller pay for the whole thing, and I've seen realtors charge an extra commission for drafting a lease, and I've seen realtors not charge. It just depends on the situation. So just to recap, you put in the amount of the days this is to be delivered to each other of the written lease, who's going to pay for it, click and split here, and then you also put a date of when the actual buyer is going to occupy the premises and begin in this example, the lease. So other than that, you'd fill out this part down here, which is the buyer shall pay a monthly rent of, maybe the seller's letting them occupy the premises, they don't have to pay no rent. You put 0 there. You could draft up a lease for $0 in rent, nothing. Maybe they're just going to pay the association dues or something like that, or the utilities. But if they're going to be paying a rent, you could put it here. Maybe it's something really small and simple, $500 monthly. Really, this is more of just a placeholder, because when you actually write up the written lease, in there you'll fill in, if they're paying a rent, if there's any additional fees, if they're going to be paying utilities or only the utilities. Maybe there's no rent and they're just going to pay the utilities and just maybe the maintenance at the HOA if they have one. So you'd write that in the lease. So for the most part down here is just a placeholder. Just put something simple there. If there's going to be some type of rent, you could put it there. I've even seen some realtors put just utilities. I don't think this particular program here lets you write, it only lets you put in numbers, so you probably have to take this document as a blank form and you could write it in elsewhere, but I would just write all that in the actual lease contract, and for here just write in the amount. If they're only going to be paying the utilities, just put 0, and then in the lease contract you could write up that they're paying the utilities. Or if you have an estimated amount for the utilities, you could write it in here too. Maybe the utilities are $300 a month. You could write that there. But that's pretty much it for this addendum. I feel like I've been talking a little bit more than I need to, but I like to make sure things are explained as thoroughly as possible to make sure you fully understand the addendum that you're signing. And if you need to elaborate further to your clients or just for your own further knowledge, I like to explain it thoroughly. The main things to understand about this addendum is if you're going to be doing all the paperwork and drafting up a lease, then make sure you're using the lease contracts that only real estate licensees are supposed to be filling in the blanks for within the state of Florida. But that's the easiest way, is to just write up a lease, and this document just discusses how many days that they're delivering the lease, to execute the lease, when the buyer is going to be moving in, taking and occupying the premises, who's paying for it, or if it's going to be split equally. and then you just write down the monthly rent amount here, whatever it is, and that's unique to each contract and situation. Then of course, as a realtor, you could charge extra for writing up the lease. You could not charge extra. Maybe you're getting a big enough commission from the sale, so this is enough. It just depends. But that is the pre-closing occupancy by buyer addendum. Once again, mainly used for the buyer occupying the premises prior to closing. Hopefully this video was helpful. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you.